In this video we're going to be looking at Revit to generate different types of night and sunrise shots using V-Ray. So let's open up our existing MaisonBordeaux house. First of all, we're going to create a view which is external, looking face on within the courtyard. So let's go to the ground floor plan or the basement plan and select view and then 3D view, camera, and if you go to the top right of the courtyard, if you click and then drag out, you should create a view. Now we want to be a little bit higher up, so if we press F8 to bring us the navigational wheel, and if we select up, we're going to raise it up and we're going to move back slightly. So let's go walk back, and sorry, that's a little bit too far. Walk back and then just angle it downwards. So we're going to raise up a bit more and then look down, similar to this view. So first of all, we're going to look at creating the putting in the coloured lights in, all the lights first of all. So if we go to Revit, and if we go to Insert and Load Family, it should take you to the Revit library for components. Under Lighting, Architecture, Internal Lighting, these are various types of lighting fixtures that attach itself to walls or ceilings. But what we're going to be using is just a simple light which has got no fixtures, it's just a source. So that falls under a studio light. So if you click on studio light, click open. Now to include them in the model, we're going to use what's called the reflected ceiling plans. So if you double expand on those, so a reflected ceiling plan is the opposite to a floor plan. So with a floor plan you look downwards. With the reflected ceiling plans you're looking up at a view. So first of all, let's go to double click on the basement plan, and if you go architecture component, it should also automatically the first component should be the lighting fixture, and then all we're going to do is add 2 on each floor. So if we click left click, you make sure you're on the reflected ceiling plans, otherwise they will not appear on the floor plans because you're looking up at them because they're at a high level. Again, if we click on component, just pop in another 2, and then on the first floor we got a gap there, so we want to show them protruding through the penetrations through that coloured element of the wall. So then if we go back down to the view, if you like you can just rename that view. So I'm going to rename it external night sunrise. So double click on it. Now first of all the rendering we're going to be doing is through V-Ray. So if we click on V-Ray, make sure the apply license is activated. So first we're going to create a sunrise view. So this is the early morning sun of the position of our building. So let's click on, if you double click on the view, now to set those sun settings, if we click render settings, click edit, and then under sun settings we click the little tab there. So these are the presets. So by default it should be a specific, the lighting is set to the azimuth and altitude specific to that view. Now what we're going to be using is what it will be like in real life, so where it is positioned in the world. So if we click on still, and then if we click on summer solstice, and then we're just going to change the time to 4 AM, so it should be 04. Don't worry about it doesn't have to be completely to the same date, but we're just going to use the summer solstice, and we'll click on OK. Click on OK. Now we're just going to amend the V-Ray settings. So if we click on, first of all, external light shot, so the first view, so making sure it's going to render that view, keep it to draft and keep the resolution to a relatively low resolution. So if we just go to 98 under printer size, and we will just use a preset of the 800 by 600. Excuse me. We're going to click, make sure the sun's artificial lights are on, and we're going to use the V-Ray sun. So the intensity is set to 1, and also the sun size, we change that to 1. And we're going to change the exposure value. So exposure is the amount of light it lets into the camera. So at the moment there's not a particular amount of light, so we're going to change that to 11. So we should be ready to go. So if we click on render, that's just a previous image. And you should get a render similar to this. So as you can see, the sun is in the background, quite low, and once it's completed, see the reflections, and you can change the exposure value. If you click on the little tab down there and we click exposure, we can change it right down or expose more light to that camera. So these are after production processes, and you can also change the amount of highlight band, so more intense on the light, and the contrast. So you can tweak or post-production processes as after. So if you do high quality images and you haven't got the correct settings, this is an opportunity to change those. So once you're happy, we're going to go save channel, and you can save it as a JPEG. Sunset. So you can use other processes such as Photoshop to add more people in, or better quality external planting, etc. Let's put sunrise. So that's the first image we've produced. Next one we're going to do is a night shot. So we'll leave the same view, we just close those down, but we're just going to change some of the V-Ray settings. So we keep the draft quality as it is, the resolution as it is. This time, rather than sun, we're going to click no sun. But because there's no sun, we need to increase the exposure value. So if you click on exposure value to 4, no sun, and then we click the render button again. So making sure that the artificial lights are on. So what it does is no lights, no sun is activated, but the lights within the building are now coloured in. So as it's going, because it's got lights on it, it takes a bit more longer to render the image. And again, you can use the exposure values to change. So by ticking the little button here, so at the bottom left here, this will give you the corrections panel, and you can change or change the exposure by just keeping your finger on the toggles, etc. to show more or less light coming in. Again, you can do a save as of that, and we just call that one night. So it's quite simple to add in lights, but what we can also do is, if I go back to our present image, we can change the color of the lights. So that's a relatively simple process. So if we click on that, so if we open up a view, you should be able to see the little these are our lighting, our light sources. Now if we click on, if I just get rid of these, so if I click, sorry, go back to the view. If I select one of them, if I click edit type, if you scroll on down, there's a colour filter. So at the moment it's white, that's why it's projecting white, but if you change it, if you click on it, it gives you the wheel. You can either use one of these presets. I'll use quite a dark blue colour just to demonstrate it. Click OK. So now when you render it, so go back to re-ray render, it renders the changes the source, but adds a filter over the colour. Again, you can change the contrast so you can give it a bit more of a sharper colour, etc. Now in our image we've got two colours, so we've got red and a pink, a red and a blue, to give these, and you get different colour reflections where they merge in. So if we go back to Revit, this time before we select one of them, I'm just going to edit type and just rename that one blue. Click OK. Now I'm going to select it again, click edit type, and this time I'm going to click duplicate, and I'll call that one red. So I'll click OK, and then at the bottom I change the filter to a deep red, just using one of the presets. Click OK, and also I want to change the other light at the top. So at the moment it's blue. If I select it, I can change that one to the red that we just created. Now if we render it again, I'll go back to our render view relay, it should merge or change the top and the bottom. So keeping the ones at the bottom blue and then the top ones red. And again, you can just change the amount of contrast or burn, and then the exposure value again. So that's a quick demonstration on how to create a sunrise and night shots with lighting. And again, once you've completed it, you can or once you're happy with it, you can change the quality or change the resolution, but it will take longer to render. So that concludes this seminar.